Well, the question of paying college athletes for their performance on the field has been one talked about for many decades, with the last 5 years really seeing even greater focus. But a recent judge's decision in the House versus NCAA case has now led to a door opening where colleges will be able to pay athletes without breaking any previous rules. But what does this mean for the future of college athletics? Pleasure to be joined by Rob DiGisi, who's a lecturer in the sports marketing department here at the Wharton School and also founder of Iron Horse Marketing. Hi, Rob. Good to talk to you again.
Nice to speak to you too, Dan.
All right. So we've known it's been here for a little while, but in terms of this settlement, what was your reaction?
Well, it took a while for her final approval. The big last hearing was on April 7th. So everyone was just waiting. Is today the day? Is today the day? And finally, late Friday, the final approval came down, really with minimal changes from that last hearing on April 7th, grandfathering in really walk-ons because of the change of roster limits now replacing scholarship limits. So I'm thrilled that the new era is here and excited about all the people commenting about it and eager to see what happens, because it's anything new like this is going to drive a lot of different changes.
And for those that don't follow it, a lot of this will be based on the revenues that the universities are able to bring in for their athletic programs, correct? In terms of how much they will be paying out.
Well, the calculations in the settlement were definitely generated by that. There's a couple different components to this settlement. First, there's the issue of back pay for damages for players who participated between 2016 and 24. But going forward, current athletes will share in revenue generated from media sponsorship and ticketing revenue. And that was calculated by 22% of the average revenue from those sources across the Power 5, now Power 4 conferences.
All right, but when you talk about this, then there's the discussion about what has been and what will be moving forward in terms of the other parties that have either legally or illegally contributed finances to athletes. It used to be, donors under the table. I guess it kind of developed into collectives. What does this mean for that side of this equation?
Well, I think that's a big open issue. Since July 1st, 2021, the NCAA removed its restrictions on student athletes in particular, earning money on their name, image, and likeness. What quickly came together with these collectives were essentially donors would pool their money to set up a company that contracted with the student athlete who would receive compensation in return for some voluntary days. It's really odd. I've just said something quite contradictory there. Compensation for their volunteering efforts.
Yeah, right.
They would volunteer at a charity, and that charity could use their name, image, and likeness, but they would be paid $1 million for that. What that really means is we need a new left tackle, and you could get that money. It's different than using your name, image, and likeness to drive test drives at a car dealership. And so there's two separate types of NIL. I talk about this in class. There's real NIL, and there is the pay-for-play NIL. So what the big question is, what happens with that pay-for-play NIL? That is really a means to exceed this new compensation cap, which is different than a pro cap because that's a negotiated amount between the management and a union. In this case, it's a cap resulting from a legal settlement. So now what happens with this extra money? What I'm worried about, the way I see it, it's as if NFL teams were passing the hat around the stadium because they wanted to exceed the salary cap that had been legally negotiated with the management and the union.
In terms of the money, though, that universities will be able to pay out, the expectation is that the football and basketball programs will be the ones that see the majority of the money. So I guess the question becomes, what happens to, or what do the athletes in the non-revenue driving sports get? Probably the crumbs at the bottom of the barrel.
Well, that is a issue ripe for additional legal challenges. But what's worse is they don't just get the crumbs. They may get worse than no payment. Their sports may be eliminated because the athletic departments are going to have to come up with this money to pay the athletes somewhere. And like any other business, if you suddenly have a new expense, you're either going to have to generate more revenue or cut expenses from elsewhere. And so we're going to see schools cutting expenses, cutting staff in their athletic department, not having as much money to pay coaches, or doing things a little more aggressively from a revenue generating standpoint than they've never done before. Jersey patches, say, on their uniforms.
And you're already, as you said, seeing examples of that. One which some people may know about is from here in the Philadelphia area. Brenathan College eliminated all of its sports, and they had 800 students in their school. 400 of them played athletics. So this is, these are the stories we're going to see play out. St. Francis making its changes from Division I to Division III. We're talking about, all the changes that have occurred in college athletics in the last few years with conference jumping. I think we're getting ready for a whole new set of changes coming forward.
We have not reached the destination. This is one milestone in the journey. There are going to be so many changes going on over the next few years, fueled by additional legal challenges, by schools adapting to suddenly having to pay $20 million a year, elevating every year 4%. And so those kind of things are real serious things. And there's going to be a lot of unhappy people.
What are your greatest concerns then moving forward with how these dynamics look now and may play out for the larger scale future of college athletics?
Well, there's so many different things. The Power Four is truly going to be like a minor league conference now, where basketball and football are going to be compensated. We're going to lose other sports. We don't know what's going to happen with collectives. There's going to be significant antitrust violations here, where there is a violation of a salary cap, but it's not a collectively bargained cap, and there's not a collective bargaining agreement because there's no union, because there's no employees. So all those issues are still to be addressed. So everything is a concern because it's going to be a massive transformation. And when people ask me, when's this going to finally end? When's this going to end up? I said, I have no idea. The one thing I'm certain of, it's not going to end for years.
And for the schools that are in kind of that grouping of paying portions of their revenue out to athletes, realistically, they have to spend all of that money if they want to remain competitive, don't they?
Absolutely. If you're in the SEC, Georgia and Alabama are certainly going to pay their $20.5 million. So Mississippi State and Vanderbilt and Arkansas are all going to have to step up to stay competitive. And then it trickles down to the other conferences as well. And if the conferences all came together and said, hey guys, this is too much, let's make it $10 million. Well, there'll be a lawsuit on that for collusion, because now it's a free market system on this. What's going to be interesting is that the Division I no football schools like the Big East Conference, they're not going to have the burden of having to pay for a football program. So you're going to see UConn and Villanova, even though they don't have top FBS football, they're going to have more resources to pay their basketball players than Alabama and Florida.
But when you think about the structure of these teams and the people that they're bringing onto their staffs, I guess this is part of the reason why we're seeing the role of a so-called general manager for school football programs these days.
And for basketball programs. And you're going to see maybe a CEO of the athletic department, of which the athletic director, much like a pro team, where you have someone handling the sports side and someone handling the business side, instead of it all being rolled up into one like it has been historically.
Are you feeling worried about the path that we could be headed on right now?
I'm worried because of the essence of students competing against students is going away. And that's ingrained in the foundation of what college sports are. And John Paul Stevens in a 1984 Trustees versus Oklahoma against the NCAA case said the revered tradition of amateurism in college athletics. That was 40 years ago. We know that is long gone away. And so at some point, what I'm worried about is people say, well, let's just forget about this whole going to class thing. And that what a school is going to do is license its intellectual property, its name and its logo, and lease its facilities. And you're truly just going to have a minor league business on the campus of a university, and the whole students competing against students thing goes away.
Rob, great to talk to you again. Thanks very much. All the best.
Always good to speak to you, Dan.
Thank you. Rob DiGisi, lecturer in the sports marketing department here at the Wharton School.